Hey guys, how's it going? Master Cal here, and today I'm going to be doing the 19th video of my 2021 NFL offseason preview series, the Washington football team. So now we're getting into the teams that made the playoffs. Washington made the playoffs with a 7-9 record, thanks to the NFC East being atrociously bad, as we all know. Washington had a very roller coaster type season. They started off with a win, and then they dealt with drama and injuries, and they wound up starting 4 different quarterbacks over the course of the season: Dwayne Haskins, Kyle Allen, Alex Smith, and Taylor Heineke. They had the most success with Smith, but Smith was unable to play in their wild card game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Heineke gave gave Tampa Bay a good run for their money, but ultimately they weren't able to outlast the eventual Super Bowl champions. And so we'll see what direction Ron Rivera and Washington will go. Washington, by the way, will stick with the Washington football team moniker for this year, and in 2022 they'll have a new nickname. So their starters by cap space. Quarterback is Smith, obviously the number 1 overall pick back in 2005. Same draft class as Aaron Rodgers by the 49ers. And this would be his 4th season with Washington. However, as news has just come out, he is being released by Washington because of his cap hit and because of the health concerns about him. He won Comeback Player of the Year easily after returning from that really awful leg injury that could have been life-threatening. A similar injury to what Tiger Woods recently suffered in that car accident. And so to come back from an injury that could have A, threatened his life, B, threatened him walking ever again, to come back, play football, and put your team in a position to make the playoffs is incredible. And he almost was unanimous. There was one voter that actually voted for Ben Roethlisberger for CPOY. So anyways, he is being released, 15-ish million in cap savings, and so Washington will go in a different direction at quarterback. At running back, their largest cap hit belongs to J.D. McKissick, former Seahawk. He joined Washington last year on like a 2-year deal. He's made his money in the NFL so far as like a pass catching back and a special teamer, and I think he might have actually seen a decent amount of action last year. At left tackle is Cornelius Lucas, former Lion, former Bear, joined Washington on a 2-year deal this past offseason, and he wound up taking over midseason for Jerron Christian as the starting left tackle, and he actually fared pretty well down the stretch, so we'll see what Washington wants to do with him. Do they consider him, I guess, a short-term option at left tackle? Do they want to see if someone like Sadiq Charles, who they took in the 4th round of last year's draft, can maybe be the successor, or do they use a high draft pick on what is a pretty deep tackle class in this draft? At left guard is Wes Schweitzer, who a former Atlanta Falcon. He joined Washington on a 3-year deal last season, a free agent. He's a guy that's been in and out of starting lineups throughout his entire career. At center is Chase Roulier, who was a 6th rounder of Washington in 2017, and he's been pretty good for them. They signed him to an extension right at the end of the regular season for the next 4 seasons, so he's definitely going to be there. At right guard for now is Wes Martin, 4th rounder in 2019 out of Indiana, who didn't play much as a rookie, but he did see some action last year. And then right tackle is Morgan Moses, a guy who had a nice bounce back year after seeing a couple of down years in 2018 and 2019. He actually had a pretty good 2020. Wide receiver, you got Terry McLaurin, 3rd rounder in 2019 out of Ohio State, who's been a steal. Washington drafted him then to potentially be a special teamer in the 3rd round, but he's contributed immediately as a pretty excellent wide receiver. Their next is going to be Antonio Gandy Golden, a 4th rounder in 2020 out of Liberty. He didn't really do much as a rookie, though. In the slot is Steven Sims, a guy who came on late towards the end of the season and fared well. Tight end Logan Thomas, a converted quarterback, former Bill. I think he was with the Lions as well. And he saw by far the largest action of his career as the number 1 tight end in Washington, but he didn't do a whole lot. On defense, you got Chase Young, obvious pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year, who was every bit the dominant player that he was at Ohio State when Washington selected him 2nd overall to a position that was already deep for them on the defensive line, but he still dominated. Defensive tackle, you got Jonathan Allen, their first rounder in 2017. He's set to enter the fifth-year option of his rookie deal. And he's been pretty good for them outside of an injury-marred rookie season, and I imagine they'll try to get an extension done with him at some point. Next to him is Matt Ioannidis, fifth rounder in 2016 out of Temple. He signed an extension in the 2019 offseason. Unfortunately, he only played in like 3 games this past year because of injury. Off the other edge is Montez Sweat, first rounder in 2019 out of Mississippi State. He improved a bit from his rookie season to his second season, and it is fair to wonder like how effective he would be on if he was tasked with the number 1 or number 2 edge rusher instead of being, like the 3rd or 4th best pass rusher on the team. At the linebacker position, you got John Bostic. Bostic's kind of been all around the league. He's been with Chicago. He's been with Pittsburgh. I forget where else he's been. This is his 3rd year with Washington. He did pretty well in 2019 for them and was solid in 2020. And then their next 2 guys are listed because of their cap hits, Josh Harvey Clemens and Sean Dion Hamilton. Harvey Clemens is a special teamer who opted out of last season, so he still has 1 year left on his rookie deal. Dion Hamilton was cut at the end of the regular season and claimed by the Lions off of waivers. Their actual number 2 linebacker is Cole Holcomb, 5th rounder in 2019 out of, I think, North Carolina, who has also been a steal for them in the draft. I don't know who their number 3 linebacker would be. Cornerback, you got Jimmy Moreland, a 7th rounder in 2019 who has contributed as well, so a pretty solid 2019 draft class, obviously aside from Dwayne Haskins that Washington got there. Then you got Greg Stroman, who I think was a draft pick in 2018, who's mostly been a special teamer as well. And then in the slot is Kendall Fuller. Fuller was initially drafted by Washington in 2016. He was traded to Kansas City in the deal that brought Alex Smith over to Washington, won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, and then came back to Washington on a 4-year deal this past offseason. And because his first 2 years in the NFL with Washington, he was like very good and on the rise, but he didn't do that. But he didn't do as great in Kansas City. Safety is Landon Collins, former New York Giant. He's in the 3rd year of a big 6-year contract he signed with the Washington in 2019. Collins, unfortunately, is coming off of an Achilles tear, and seeing as he hasn't lived up to that contract in his first 2 years, it's fair to wonder what his future is going to be like. And the next to him is DeShazor Everett. Washington kind of had a rotation at safety this past year. You saw Cameron Curl, a 2020 draft pick, impress, and he's probably the starter. You got Troy Apke, who I think was the starter at the beginning of the year. Again, there were 4 different guys: Collins, Everett, Apke, and Curl, who all got playing time. Curl was the best out of them, so he's definitely going to be a starter. And then if Collins is healthy and still on the team, he will be there because of his contract. So on their special teams, they don't have a long snapper or a kicker under contract at the moment. Their punter is Tress Way, who I think he signed an extension either during 2019 or 2020. Okay, so Washington's free agents, you got right guard Brandon Scherf, who played last year under the franchise tag and again was very good. Washington and Scherf do have interest in a long-term extension, but it remains to be seen if they'll be able to agree to one before the franchise tag deadline, which is this Tuesday. If they don't, I imagine he'll be tagged for the 2nd straight offseason. Defensive end Ryan Kerrigan, who's been with Washington since 2011. Kerrigan played a reduced role this past season because of the younger options like Sweat and Young there, and it sounds like he may leave. I could see him maybe ring chase. Linebacker Thomas Davis, who has retired. Davis obviously played for Ron Rivera from 2011 to 2018 in Carolina and had some of his best years there. Washington actually released Davis a few days ago so he could sign a 1-day contract to retire with Carolina. Linebacker Kevin Pierre-Louis, he's been with the Chiefs, with the Seahawks, the Jets, the Bears as a special teamer, occasional starter. Starting cornerback Ronald Darby, kicker Dustin Hopkins, linebacker Reuben Foster, former first-round pick of the 49ers who had off-field issues, and he's dealt with injuries since Washington claimed him off of waivers. And seeing as nobody was there when Washington did claim off of waivers back in the Jay Gruden, Bruce Allen days, I don't imagine he's going to be back, and it's fair to wonder if he's going to have much interest. Offensive tackle David Sharp. Defensive end Ryan Anderson. Anderson was a guy that many thought could be traded by Washington given the depth they had there and the fact that he had a decent-ish 2019 season, but with the scheme change from the 3-4 to the 4-3 that he would have been pushed out. Anderson wound up not being traded, and we'll see what kind of interest he gets in the free agent market. Long snapper Nick Sundberg, linebacker Michael Kendricks, running back Lamar Miller. Quarterback Taylor Heineke is a restricted free agent. Washington has agreed to re-sign him to a 2-year contract. So if the season started today, he would be the starting quarterback for them. Cornerback Fabian Moreau. Linebacker Jared Norris. Wide receiver Robert Foster is a restricted free agent. Wide receiver Cam Sims is a restricted free agent. Tight end Jeremy Sprinkle. Kyle Allen is an exclusive rights free agent. And cornerback Danny Johnson is a restricted free agent. Okay, yeah. So Washington, now after the release of Smith, they have roughly $53 million in cap space, which that would put them, I think, in the top 5 behind the Jaguars, the Jets, the Patriots, and I think maybe the Bengals, or maybe Washington is 4th now. But yeah, so Washington has a lot of flexibility. So their needs, Washington quarterback is on their wish list with Smith gone. It sounds like the Washington players would be in support of Heineke being their starter, and it's certainly possible. Washington's been connected on the trade market for Sam Darnold and also for Marcus Mariota, but it's not likely that either of that will happen soon. For one, Mariota's trade market seems to have dried up, and for two, the Jets apparently want to wait and evaluate the quarterback draft class before making a decision on Darnold. And so we'll see what they do. It's possible that they could go after Mariota if he gets released, and then they could also go after maybe a veteran like, a Cam Newton, a Ryan Fitzpatrick, an Andy Dalton, a Tyrod Taylor, and have him compete against Heineke to start. I imagine they are gonna at the very least franchise tag Scherf at right guard and keep him there. I could see them maybe like I mentioned before, I could see them maybe drafting a left tackle to maybe upgrade over Cornelius Lucas, so we'll see what they do there. Definitely want to upgrade at wide receiver. I could see them getting an upgrade over Logan Thomas at tight end. Definitely cornerback is a big need because I don't believe they'll want Moreland and Stroman starting. Their potential cap casualties, well, Smith, they've already cut. They could cut McKissick. They could also cut Peyton Barber. I don't believe they'd cut Lucas, Schweitzer, or Moses. I could see them cutting Logan Thomas. I don't believe they'll cut him, though, until they find someone who is an upgrade, like, say, a Gerald Everett or maybe in the draft. I could see them cutting Ioannidis given their depth there at defensive tackle. They've already cut Sean Dion Hamilton. And then Landon Collins, his contract isn't really cuttable, though, so I think they're probably going to have to stick with him for another year. So, yeah. That's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for my next off-season preview series video.